She said I was too predictable to love. So I let her chase chaos while I quietly built everything she'd never belonged to. Now she begs to come back. But I'm already long gone. I was never the kind of man who lit up a room the moment he stepped in. If you walked into a party, you'd probably miss me on the first scan. I'd be in the corner somewhere, holding a cup of whatever was served, leaning against a wall, half smirking at my own sarcastic thought. That was just me. Quiet, a little offbeat, comfortable in the background. Melissa, on the other hand, was everything I wasn't. She was fireworks in a world of candles. Loud, laughing, bright as hell. She didn't just enter a room. She took over the music, the mood, the very air itself. The first time I met her, she was barefoot on the dance floor at a friend's wedding before dessert had even been served. She had her heels in one hand and a wine glass in the other, spinning with strangers like they were childhood friends. And somehow, out of all the people there, she walked straight over to me. The guy standing alone by the dessert table and said, "Why do you look like you're stuck in an insurance seminar?" I laughed, a bit stunned, and she just smiled like she already knew me. That was the beginning. That one comment sparked a connection that somehow made sense, even though everything about us seemed opposite. The first year together was golden. Lazy mornings wrapped in sheets. Playlists we'd build together for long drives to nowhere. Little jokes that only we understood. I'd never had that kind of chemistry with anyone before. We were different, sure, but it worked. It felt like the kind of difference that made each other better. But slowly, almost quietly, the tides changed. Melissa got promoted. Something in public relations that had her surrounded by people who wore sunglasses indoors and laughed loudly at their own stories. She started hanging out with a new crowd. Influencers, designers, ambitious people who moved fast and talked louder. Brunch turned into bottomless mimosas with business cards. Weekends turned into after-hours clubbing. Networking, she called it. I tried to keep up. I wore the jackets, memorized a few industry buzzwords, smiled through rooftop mixers where I felt like an extra in a scene that wasn't mine. I did my best to be present, to support her, to fit in. Then one night, after another glitzy event where I'd been mostly silent and half invisible, I brought it up. We'd been together for 3 years, and I asked if she'd want to move in together. I said it casually but meant it completely. She looked up from her phone like I'd interrupted something she was deep into. She blinked, confused. "Why would we do that?" she asked. I was stunned. "Because we've been together for 3 years," I said, my voice just barely steady. She shrugged, a dismissive kind of shrug, like I'd asked if she wanted takeout. Then she said it. "Evan, you're great. You are. But you're just predictable. I feel like I know what you're going to say before you say it. I need something more mystery adventure. You're safe. And that's not my type anymore." It didn't even feel like a breakup. It felt like getting muted mid-conversation. Like someone changed the channel on a show you thought you were both watching together. I nodded slowly, feeling the blood drain from my chest into my shoes. "Thanks for being honest," I said. She smiled, like she'd handled it so maturely. Then, as if nothing serious had just happened, she asked if I still wanted to go to the wine tasting she'd planned with her friends the next day. I didn't go. She left that night with a tossed, "Text me if you change your mind," and barely a glance. Already texting someone else about new plans, probably. I sat alone in my apartment for hours that night. Didn't cry. Didn't smash anything. Just sat there trying to pinpoint the exact moment I'd started waiting for her to choose me. And why? I had no answers. Just an ache in my chest and silence in my phone. There was no grand goodbye, no screaming match, no last kiss. She just moved on. Like our entire relationship was a decent chapter she'd outgrown. Like I was a comfortable sweater she'd finally grown tired of. For a while, I thought maybe she'd reach out. Maybe she'd realize something in a quiet moment. But days turned into weeks, then into months. The only traces of her I saw were through social media. Photos from parties in cities I'd never been to. New friends, new dresses, new hashtags. Captions like, "Can't cage a wild heart," and "Choose vibes, not people." I didn't like, didn't comment, just watched the life she chose unfold without me in it. And for the first time since she left, I asked myself, why wasn't I writing one of my own? That weekend, while Melissa was probably sipping something neon-colored in some VIP lounge, I pulled out an old notebook. It was covered in dust, tucked behind a shelf where I kept things I didn't believe in anymore. The spine was cracked. Inside were pages and pages of business plans. Ideas I'd sketched out long before Melissa. A blueprint for a creative co-working space. A place where artists, freelancers, and dreamers could work, connect, grow. I remembered believing in it. I remembered thinking it could matter. But somewhere along the way, I'd shelved it. Shelved myself. Maybe I thought it was too risky. Maybe I just didn't want Melissa to think I was chasing a fantasy. That night, something shifted. Quietly. Not like a movie montage where I threw open the curtains to a new day. More like a small flame reigniting after a long time in the dark. I spent hours that weekend reworking those plans. Updating numbers. Googling business forums. I called Matt, an old friend from college who owned a small art studio he barely used. Asked if he'd consider renting it to me cheap just to test something out. He said yes immediately. No questions asked. I didn't tell anyone. No Instagram posts. No big moves coming soon captions. Just me and that studio. I woke up early, worked on it before my remote job, painted the walls myself, took an online course on small business management, started posting flyers at cafes, joined forums, sketched floor plans on napkins while waiting for coffee. It wasn't grand, but it was real. And while I was building that space, quietly, brick by brick, Melissa's life kept getting louder. New clubs, flashier parties. Her circle grew more distant, her captions more vague. But I didn't watch anymore. I had work to do. The studio opened on a cold, rain-smeared Thursday morning. No grand launch, no streamers or balloons, just a handwritten sign that said, "Welcome," and a pot of coffee brewing in the corner. The first people who walked through that door weren't investors or influencers. They were locals. A photographer with a beat-up backpack. A poet who scribbled verses on receipt paper. A startup guy who ran his business from 2 open browser tabs. We held tiny workshops, traded playlists, shared books, sat around talking about dreams like they were real currency. And slowly, the place started to breathe. People stayed longer than they meant to, came back the next day, invited friends. It was small, it was raw, but it was alive. Every brush stroke I'd painted on those walls felt like stitching a part of myself back together. Melissa hadn't noticed. Not yet. I didn't expect her to. She was too busy posting videos from rooftop pools and commenting on her own stories with hashtags about freedom and vibes. But then, on a random Thursday evening, during a spoken word night at the studio, someone tagged me in a picture. It wasn't even anything glamorous. Just me, laughing near the bookshelf with a guest, holding a mug of chamomile tea. The caption read, "This space feels like home." That was the first time I heard from her again. The message came in at 1:12 a.m. short. Casual. "Did you open a business?" I saw it, let it sit unread. 2 days later, another message landed. "Can we talk?" Followed by, "I just didn't realize you were doing all this. Thought you were just like, working or something." I still didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I had stopped looking back. The version of me she knew, the one who waited quietly for her to make space for me, that man was busy now. Not proving a point. Just living a life that didn't revolve around being chosen. The messages stopped for a while. I figured that was it. She'd get bored and float onto the next adventure. That was her rhythm. But then, out of nowhere, she showed up. In person. At a Thursday mixer I'd organized with local creatives. I was rearranging chairs when I saw her walk in. Phone in hand, pretending to scroll. Like she was just passing by and happened to see the open sign. Never mind that the studio's name was painted across the entire front window in giant letters. The Foundry. She acted surprised to see me. Said the place had great energy. Commented on the plants, the lighting. She circled the space like it was an art exhibit. I nodded, thanked her, then got back to work. She stuck around for a bit, hovered near the coffee table where a few writers were talking about self-publishing options. I didn't introduce her to anyone, and eventually she left. A week later, she returned, this time with a mutual friend. She laughed a little too loud, told everyone she was obsessed with the space. I was polite, professional, but I didn't ask about her life, didn't ask if she wanted to catch up. And that's when it shifted. The compliments started. The flirting crept in. You've changed, she said one evening, her hand brushing a book on the shelf. There's something different about you now. You're glowing. It's hot. I smiled. Thanks. That was all I said. But she kept showing up. Every Thursday, she'd bring croissants, offer help rearranging chairs. You know, she said one evening, it's pretty amazing what you've built. Rare, even. I always knew you had it in you. I didn't say anything. Didn't tell her that the plans for this place were written in that notebook long before we ever met. That I'd shelved them for a relationship that eventually declared I was too predictable. I didn't tell her about the nights I'd sat alone, wondering if I was just meant to be background noise in someone else's story. I didn't tell her about Claire either. About how Claire came to one of the first writing workshops we held. How she'd stayed late, helping me move tables, bringing tea for the night owls who wouldn't leave until midnight. How her laugh was soft, her questions sharp, and her presence steady. I didn't tell Melissa that Claire never asked me to be anyone other than myself, that she didn't need loud rooms or filters or crowds, that she found joy in quiet things, in our Sunday mornings cooking eggs, in our walks with her dog, in late nights reading essays on creativity. Melissa didn't know that by the time she was showing up with croissants, Claire had already met my parents. Then one night, almost exactly a year to the day since Melissa first walked up to me at that wedding, she messaged again. This time, she didn't play it cool. I think I made a mistake, she wrote. I miss you. I thought I wanted excitement, but I'm just tired. You were the only one who ever felt like home. I sat with that message. Read it once, then again, and after a while, I typed, I'm glad you found what you were looking for. I did too. She didn't write back. Maybe she thought I'd be waiting, that I'd still be that quiet guy in the corner hoping she'd see me. But that guy had built something. Not a business, not a comeback, a life, something with weight, with purpose, with love that didn't need to shout to be felt. Melissa once told me I was predictable, and maybe I am. I like morning coffee in the same mug. I like knowing my dog's bed is in the corner by the window. I like that Claire leaves me notes on the fridge when she heads out early for her morning classes. I like routine. I like quiet. I like the kind of love that doesn't burn fast and die out, but stays. She wanted chaos, and she got it. I wanted peace, and I built it. Brick by brick, word by word, handshake by handshake. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her to regret. I just needed my own story, and now I'm living in it.